What's up, Panther Nation? This is the C3 podcast brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com. It's the hottest Panthers podcast, bringing you that Carolina talk from a Panther fan perspective. We've got a tremendous show tonight for you guys, celebrating a decisive win over the Falcons. We've got a division championship. We are previewing a playoff matchup. Who would have thought that 6 weeks ago? And about 15 to 20 minutes after the hour, we're going to have a special guest, Bill Voth, founder of Black and Blue Review, and we're going to ask him some questions about the team. Black and Blue Review is a great site, guys. You should check it out. They're doing great work, so I can't wait to pick his brain tonight. But before we get to business and introduce everybody, I just want to go ahead and put in the typical plugs. First, be sure to follow us on Twitter at @cat_chronicles and like our Facebook page. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and sub up, or if you prefer to listen at the gym or in the car, download us on iTunes or Stitcher. You can catch all those links down in the bottom comment section. Great news for you guys on Amazon shoppers as well. You can help our small business grow by going to our website and just finding Amazon through there and purchasing goods. It costs nothing to you, and it helps a small business grow. It's as simple as this. You go to CarolinaCatChronicles.com, you click Shop Amazon, you buy cool stuff, they ship it to you, and they give us a little bit of a reward for sending you to them. So, I'm excited to be here. Check all that out. And, guys, Panther Nation is afire. Joe Riolano, are you happy to be a Panther fan this week?
Well, hey, I'll jump in there, Professor. This is Mel Mayock. Hey, I had to sit last week out. Felt a little bit of the stomach flu, but I'm happy to be back, man. This is the fevered pitch time of the season. Everything is, everything we wanted at the beginning of the year. We wanted back in the dance. We wanted to defend the NFC South Championship, and here we are. Been a long road. Been some bumps along the road, but hey, we're here. I'm excited. Let's get to it.
All right, Aaron, thanks for jumping in there. Joey said we got a terrible echo. I'm hoping it's on his side because I don't hear it. How does it sound on your end?
Sounding good over here, man. When it happens to me, I break out in laughter.
Okay, excellent. All right, so Joe, jump back out in, whatever you need to do. This is the Professor. It's the C3 podcast. Panther Nation, what we are doing is we're celebrating a big victory over the Atlanta Falcons, 34-3, decisive win. What are your initial reactions, Mel, about this win and us going to the playoffs?
Well, there's not a whole lot sweeter out there as far as football than beating your oldest rival and beating them soundly and playing your best game of the year when all the chips are on the table. Man, it was almost too good to be true. 34-3 against the Falcons to go to the playoffs and send them home and get their coach fired. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there really couldn't be a better story ending to this season for us because it has been a long, long road. And to end it in that fashion, to kick what the guys in the face that say they're not our rivals,
right?
And we think they're, we find this really vicious rivalry on our end in so many ways, is that to kick them in the face like that was so rewarding to me. You couldn't have made it. You couldn't have made it any better.
No. Hey, but our story's not over. Our story has not been written yet.
And, Charles Johnson had something to say about this week, is that the story is not over. He has been around here too long, and what he does not want this, and he says it's not going to end. How did you feel about that? Was that exciting to you, Mel?
Absolutely. I mean, when big money talks, people listen, right? I mean, they say he's a quiet cat, doesn't say a whole lot, but when he speaks, people listen. And for him to stand up and say, look, don't celebrate like this is the end of the road. I've been here 8 years. Thomas Davis has been around here for going on 10 years. We hadn't won a playoff game. Charles Johnson has not won a playoff game.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, I mean that's awesome. We got a lot of viewers listening to the show right now. Remind everybody you can tweet the show using the hashtag C3 or hit us up individually. Joe, are you back and ready for action?
I'm back and all squared away now.
All right, excellent. Tell us, what are your initial reactions to a 34-3 beatdown of our rivals, no matter what Scott Karasik and the Atlanta Falcons fans say?
I think that's going to make them more of our rivals in their eyes, because I saw something on Twitter the other day. It showed the Georgia Dome. And
Joe, plug your headphones in a little tighter.
It said the Carolina Panthers dome away from home. And I thought that was pretty apropos. I really like that. And that's I think it's fitting. You know, I said that going into this game, that I thought it was fitting that we should have to win this on the road to get to the playoffs. And we did. I was very confident in the fact that we'd win. You know, I was shocked at how convincingly we did. But we were playing good enough to where I knew we were going to come away with the W.
You know, I remember a podcast back at the beginning of November when the Atlanta folks were saying, we're going to come in there and we're going to run you guys out the gym. Your whole team is garbage, et cetera, et cetera. We're not your rivals. And look what happens 5 weeks later, baby.
There you go.
Yeah, to me, I didn't realize this so much until this year, is that the Atlanta Falcons are my worst, they're my least favorite team on earth. So it really was difficult for me to cheer for them the week before, but we needed it so we could play them and beat them. So it was so wonderful to me to get that. There was so much satisfaction in that. It's like if you're the Red Sox and your season stinks, but you still beat the Yankees. But it had greater consequences to that. Mel, what are your feelings about our team 5 weeks ago? No one would have, not even I, thought this would have been an option at this point. Do you think that that our bid for the playoffs is legit?
You know, 5 weeks ago, I mean, we were pretty close to garbage the way we were playing on the field. I mean, let's face it. I mean, we couldn't. I mean, Cam was banged up. The offensive line was a revolving door. We didn't have the same starting lineup throughout the entire year until, guess what, 5 weeks ago when we started winning. We finally started getting some continuity there. And I don't think it's a coincidence. Jonathan Stewart got the start. I don't think that's a coincidence. Cam Newton is healthier than he should be by the grace of God. You know, and it's all. He wrote a great article, and if the folks out there hadn't read it, go read the professor's article out on catchronicles.com about getting right and starting to win at the right time. Maybe give you the title there, Professor, but that was a great article. But
it was learning to win at the right time, and you can find that at carolinacatchronicles.com. But to me, I think this is an interesting question, is that, you know, because you see a lot of people outside of the NFC South, you know, claiming that the NFC South shouldn't even have a bid into the playoffs. I just don't like this whole discussion and nonsense, because I find one thing to be great. Not everything works out perfectly every time, but there's certain things that make life better. And I think division rivalries and divisions are good for football, better than conferences. So I like that. The second thing I'd like to say, too, is that you can have the 13-3 record, you can have this and that, but the Arizona Cardinals have a great record, and no one thinks that they're the best team, you know, in the playoffs. So it's not always about just what's the overall record, but in many ways how you got there is part of the battle. So I think that that's important too.
Hey, ask the New York Giants, right? It's not how many you win, it's when you win.
That's right.
You know?
What did Ken say last week? It's not what was it? Something about it's not how you drive, it's how you arrive.
That's very appropriate. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, let me give a quick plug, right? We at CarolinaCatChronicles.com have a daily open mic segment on our website where you, the fans, get to get in and interact and speak your mind on a different topic of the day. I'll go ahead and let the Panther out of the bag here. Tomorrow, the open mic question is exactly what you were talking about there, Professor, about somebody in the national media, Boomer Esiason, talking about you should reseed the playoff seeding and that a 7-8-1 team should not be hosting an 11-5 team. Well, you know, I got strong feelings about that. I think he's crazy. So put your opinion out there tomorrow. Go out, be a part of the open mic.
Let's jump into the game, our reactions to this beatdown on the road against the Atlanta Falcons. Joey, how good is this defense that you saw that was playing on Sunday?
Man, they're playing so good right now. Everybody's clicking. Even Starr, who has been absent all year long, he went off.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. You know, guys, I'm a big Starr fan, and he really showed up big time in this game. And that's just, that's the kind of role we've been on. Every week it's one person or a different person or a couple of people. The defense made the plays. Defense scored 14 points this week. You know, they sacked Matt Ryan 6 times. I'm sorry, Meg Ryan 6 times.
Later down to bed.
That's right. Later down by the Yule log. You know what I mean? This defense is playing lights out right now, and that's what. No matter who we play and where we play them, as long as we bring our running game and our defense, we're going to be in every game. It doesn't matter.
And as long as Cam is playing the way he's playing, we're going to be tough to be beaten by anybody.
Yeah, I was gonna save that, but let's table that for a second because you were right. Cam is dialed in, and he's playing even better than his stats are alluding. But yes. Joey, you said this defense is playing really well right now, clicking, moving on all cylinders. But is it that we've just played bad teams?
We played bad teams. Year.
Well, yeah, and the first thing you have to address is you can only play the teams you're scheduled against. Would I like to play Seattle and San Francisco and Indianapolis and Dallas? Yes, of course we'd like to play this to really test our mettle against the best, but you can't play those teams. You have to play who you're scheduled against, good or bad, whatever the case may be. They're all professional football players. They get paid to go out there and do a job and play to the best of their abilities. We play division opponents, okay, that know us almost intimately, you could say, know our schemes, know tendencies, know players, and yet we were able to blow them out. It's one thing if we're squeaking by with a 6 or 7 point win, but 45-10, 34-3, that kind of thing, you're dominating. If you dominate bad teams, then you're a good team. Good teams don't dominate bad teams don't dominate anyone. And we were a bad team 5 weeks ago. We saw that. We're a good team now.
Mel, what do you think about this defense? How good is it?
Well, I think the emergence of Starr and KK and the 2 players in the backfield, we finally got it right. We got rid of Kason, got rid of Deku in the starter position, right? I mean, I don't know why it took us that long to figure out those weren't the right guys. But granted, Ben Wickery, Sticky Wicky, and Trey Boston were not healthy at the beginning of the year. And man,
I think that is part of it. That you couldn't have gone away from those dudes at one point, even if you wanted to.
Right.
We didn't have the depth.
And boy, they have made a big difference. But if you look at ProFootballFocus.com, Starr was not only the highest-rated Panther this week, but he had his highest-rated score of the entire season. So him getting pressure up the middle with Kawan Short, man, and Big Money playing lights out, man, we're tough to beat.
I think you're right. Starr had 2 sacks in this game, had like 3 or 4 quarterback hurries, some knockdowns. He graded out plus 4.1, and if you grade a +2 in Pro Football Focus, you've had a monster game. So it was a career game for him. And I mean, that's better than any game he's had to this point. So what I've written about this week is that maybe that shows how, that ankle injury, it does affect a big guy like that. And maybe we're starting to see him healthy. You're seeing K'Wan Short settle into his starting role. That's nicely. But here's the one thing about, like, all right, we couldn't have gone away from these guys and had because of the depth. And like we're saying, is Josh Norman, though, he's been playing very well. Again, Julio Jones, tough day at the office for him. Even though Josh Norman can get a penalty even when he's not doing anything. Did you guys see that? Josh Norman got a penalty for taking his helmet off and celebrating on the field, and he wasn't even involved in the play.
Yeah. He's got a reputation, man. He's got to turn that around.
I heard that the reputations can be bad. And Ndamukong Suh, the suspension, but I think they overturned it.
Yeah, which sucks. He deserves a suspension.
I don't think so.
I don't think it was intentional. I don't
either.
I think the first step was accidental. The second one, he was like, "Oh, there's somebody behind me. I don't know who it is, but just."
He happened to be that sore calf that Aaron Rodgers had.
Right. I just can't believe he did it.
Yeah, there's no way. You look at it, there's no way he could have been that intentional about it.
Totally intentional, man. Total.
All right.
Either way, he's a little lighter in the wallet for it.
$70,000.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the offensive performance in this Atlanta game. Cam Newton dialed in 2 weeks in a row, but this week even more so. Jay Stu is beating people up on the ground. I mean, crazy. This guy is playing like the Jonathan Stewart that we saw in 2009, maybe?
Yeah. 2009. Double trouble. But
how about this? Is Joey, this offense seems to be doing pretty well. Can it get even better?
I think so. I think it can get better. There were a few plays that we ran where Tolbert didn't have a very good yards per carry average. I don't know if it's his running style or what, but it didn't seem like the line blocked very well for him when he got the ball. And I think even more importantly than that is Kelvin Benjamin. He had a touchdown, or what would have been real close to a touchdown, that hit him right in the hands.
Yeah,
it was huge.
Just fell away. He doesn't get behind people very often because, he's not that fleet of foot. He's fast, but, he's not a burner, as you would say. But he got behind Trufant. Yeah. And that pass was right on the money. Hit him dead in the hands.
Like on the hip.
He couldn't have asked. I mean,
he put it in his pocket.
Yes, he did. All he had to do, right, exactly. If he was in jeans, he would have just opened up his pocket and would have gone right in there. But he dropped it. And then he dropped another one later in the game, too. Not as big of a play, but I think it would have been for a first down, that would have kept the drive alive. So those are, we got to clean that sort of stuff up. That's the details, the finer points, the nuances we've got to clean up. And we can be better that way.
Well, hey, guys, one of our Twitter followers, which I think is a cool name, Retro Donnie, right? He asked us a little bit earlier to talk about the play calling. I think this is a good time to talk about that, right? How do you see the play calling compared to earlier in the year? Because I love seeing that play where when Cam fakes the handoff to Jay Stu and then gives it to Corey Philly Brown coming around
the end.
And the coach said Philly Brown's really opened things up for him. As far as
I think all right, here's what we got with the play calling. The play calling hasn't changed very much, to be honest. The play calling is very good between the 20s. Yeah. But when it gets to the red zone, once again, it's just I don't think it really makes a lot of sense overall. But here's the thing. I think Philly Brown, I think those reverses are like the only thing Mike Shula knows that can be somewhat creative or somewhat. I think it's cute almost. And it only works because you're executing the run game and you're executing the pass game. So, he does well when everything's going well. And, you know, I mean, the plays are right on when everything is working perfectly.
You know, that's kind of been my point all year, Professor. Where everybody's talking about fire Shula, which I've even gotten on that train a little bit. But you know, when players don't make plays, coaches look bad, and when players make plays, coaches look good.
What you both are saying, you're talking about execution.
That's right.
That's really what you're talking about, and our execution was horrendous at one point. Yep. And then again, to emphasize your point, Professor, is in the 20s, you know, inside of the 20, we really looked bad, and that's only improved a little bit.
Yeah, it's not better. I mean, it's not that much like tremendous. Just because we've won, if you watch it, it's not like all of a sudden we're just like throwing up touchdowns everywhere.
Right, and I think the chicanery of a reverse is a good play call because it forces your defense to stay honest. Now let's look at this. That's 3 times in the last 2 games we've run reverses, right?
Mm-hmm. And every time you like it, Joey. Every time he mentions it, he's like, I really love that reverse.
But I want to say that that's setting up the next play, which is going to be a reverse that Philly Brown is going to stop running on. He's going to stand up and he's going to throw the ball downfield to Kelvin Benjamin for a touchdown.
Oh, Lord, let's go
Remember that. Remember, I said it.
Here's the thing, is that you've got, and to answer the question initially, is that Mike Shula, I don't know if he has enough in the tank for what Cam Newton and this team can do. And you know what? Right now, to be honest, and to be fair to him, we don't have a ton of weapons. It's not like you got a speed guy and you got this. Is that Philly Brown's come on a little bit, but nobody knew who the hell he was.
But you do have a left-handed left tackle, though.
You're right. I think here's the thing, though, is that the reverse doesn't really matter. I don't even count that play on his play calling sheet because he's got Cam Newton, and Cam Newton does all those things that the reverse accomplishes in theory, the chicanery, the keeping you honest, the doing all this. He does that naturally. So, you know, I just want to see him, and I'm not going to be a Mike Shula supporter, not necessarily a detractor at the moment, but until I see one thing, and that is to him improve the play calling in the red zone, 2 things, and to run guys more to their strengths. I feel like sometimes, you know, where has Greg Olsen been the last 2 weeks? You target him 3 times in the game this past week in the first 2. It's like the first 2 plays. So it's not like he's been masterminding it back there. I don't necessarily feel like he's the long-term answer, but I don't necessarily know if you're just going to go get another coordinator, all of a sudden it's going to be great next year. But without further ado, I think, guys, we need to go ahead and jump to our next segment of the show. What we're going to do is we're going to bring in a special guest. But before that, if you need tickets to this playoff game, folks, you need tickets to a Panthers game, this playoff game specifically, Saturday, 4:25, it's going to be kicking and slamming. Or sporting event or concert, anything, you can get them through Ticketmonster. It's cheap. There's no fees. This is a website created by fans. Just go to CarolinaCatChronicles.com, click the schedule tab, and then click buy tickets. It takes you to Ticketmonster. You get your tickets, no fees. You have a blast, and Ticketmonster helps us grow by giving us a small reward for sending you. So just go there. It's real easy. It will help us a lot. Without further ado, we're going to go to our next segment and welcome in our special guest, a C3 exclusive. Okay, Panther fans, let's welcome in our guest, Bill Voth, founder of blackandbluereview.com. Thanks for joining the C3 podcast, Bill.
Hey, thank you. And hey, you got you pronounced the last name correctly, so that's always it's always a pleasant surprise.
Well, I'm glad. I try to work on that. It's been an exhausting season, I'm sure, for members of the press as well. You guys have been in a tough spot covering a team that struggled most of the season. The press conferences have become mandatorily grueling, and coaches and players have got to be tired of seeing you guys. How has the mood of your job changed over the last 4 weeks?
Well, obviously it's a little bit more fun when you get to cover a team that's doing well because everybody's acting a little bit more fun and happier. It hasn't. Every week in and week out, it's interesting. I learned that in 2010. I've been covering the team since 2005, and I was pretty spoiled when I got here in 2005, and they went to the NFC Championship game, eventually losing to Seattle. Well, in 2010, I really realized that every single week, it's still fun even with teams losing. You can have fun when a team's naming Brian St. Pierre as a starting quarterback after he was just changing diapers a few days earlier. Or Vinny Testaverde a few years earlier after he came in and started and actually beat the Cardinals on 3 days rest. That's fun. So even when things aren't going well, even during the 6-game losing streak, it's not as fun, but it's still fun and interesting.
Yeah, it's got to be a little bit easier talking to the players, though, because, I mean, Ron Rivera, his face alone shows just a completely different person over the last couple of weeks.
And you have to, Ron gets dinged for a lot of things. Some things certainly rightfully so, but other things perhaps unfairly. And I think one of the things he should get credit for is how he has gotten through this season. It's been a ridiculous calendar year for the entire organization, starting with the playoff loss in January to having to deal with Steve Smith and losing all the other receivers in March, and then really not doing a whole lot to bring guys in. And then the quarterback has to get surgery, and then the quarterback's not well at the beginning of the year, and then Greg Hardy, and then a 6-game losing streak. So it's been a rough year for Ron Rivera to navigate through. A lot of things that have been uncharted territory before for both teams in the league and for the organization. And I think Ron Rivera really did the best he could. And I think we're fortunate here to have a pretty media-friendly coach who bristles at some things, but he doesn't bristle as often as most others would.
Yeah, he certainly doesn't have, come off too gruff at times. You mentioned Cam and his injury. He looks solid in his return against Tampa Bay, and he was lights out against Atlanta. Not in his return against Tampa Bay, but how's he recovering from his injuries, and how's that ankle? You mentioned at training camp you were worried about it being a lingering problem.
Yeah, well, the ankle's still not – it's still not going to feel 100% until about a year after the surgery, if that. So we're looking at the off season, and they knew that going in. Now, Cam created a little bit of a hubbub when earlier this season he said, I wasn't expecting it to take this long. The trainers and doctors, they didn't tell me it was going to take this long. Well, they did. They made it clear. Just Cam hears what he wants to hear a lot of times, and he believes he's invincible. So the fact that the ankle continued to bother him for so long, I think was something mentally he had to get over. So it's okay, obviously. He's playing on it very well, especially since the Saints game. I have a feeling something was aggravated in the second half or overtime of the Cincinnati game that we still haven't been able to uncover yet. That's something that may come out. I don't know if it was the ribs or the ankle, but something happened in that Cincinnati game. But anyway, the ankle's as good as it can be until the offseason. When heading into next year, is going to feel like a much different player on that ankle. And the back, listen, that injury hasn't healed yet in his back. Those are two small fractures, but they're fractures. And they take about 4 to 6 weeks to heal. So Cam played 2 games with 2 bones in his broken back, and he's looked really good considering that 2 bones in his broken back. Or just 2 broken bones in his back. He's been great.
I know that this can annoy you guys in the media sometimes when us fans hang on every single word, but that also makes this whole show keep going. From our vantage point, there's a hesitancy from Rivera to get fully behind Jonathan Stewart. Until the Cleveland game, he really did not just give him any props in the press conferences or anything. He said it was a team effort, good blocking, a lot of reps that promoted the run game. Is this Rivera being loyal to Williams and a veteran, or why the coolness with Jonathan Stewart?
It is. I think it's a mix. It's a mix of fans reading too much into everything. It's a mix of the media not explaining the whole situation well enough and saying, listen, cool your jets. I've tried to say, listen, at least for the past couple weeks, I've tried to say, listen, This isn't that big a deal. You guys are fretting about it. Rivera's not going to do this. Now, I understand Rivera has a recent history of trotting D'Angelo out there ahead of a Stewart who looks pretty much better than anybody else except for the coaching staff all the way up until the Minnesota game. And then D'Angelo had to have a broken bone in his hand. If that didn't happen, would D'Angelo still be starting right now? Perhaps he would be. But Rivera knows he's got a hot hand right now. He understands it. And D'Angelo is the franchise's all-time leading rusher. Rivera has to be very delicate about this whole situation. D'Angelo also has an ego. Just like a lot of guys, D'Angelo has a sizable ego. And how Rivera talks to us about it and how this is going forward, it's a very delicate situation. But even if D'Angelo played last week, he wasn't going to get a lot of carries. So it's up to the media to explain to fans, listen, even though Rivera's not coming out and saying that publicly, here's what's happening.
Charles Johnson, in his speech after the game, he said, "I've been here too long. This is not the end. I don't want this to be the end." This was after the Atlanta game. It seemed a bit uncharacteristically vocal for Charles Johnson. What do you make of this?
Charles is maturing a little bit. Maturing's not even the right word. He's getting a little bit more comfortable with speaking up. He's never going to be a huge rah-rah guy. He never has been. But I think he cares, man. He cares. People don't think he cares all that much. Remember the guy that got a huge amount of money, and when we talked to him after he got his contract, he essentially laughed about when he heard the number the Panthers were offering. He said, "Oh my God, really? You're going to believe how much they were giving him?" But it was so important to him to earn that contract. Now, has he earned that big money? Maybe not, but he's been really solid for all the years he's been under that contract. So there's something to be said about that, and this isn't a guy that got a big contract and disappeared, like a lot of guys do, like a lot of defensive ends do. So Charles cares more than people actually assume, just because he's a quiet guy, especially in the media. He does care. He cares a lot, and his recent play, this guy's playing really, really well, and that's a good thing for the Panthers heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, we're big fans of big money here, and, man, he's been playing just tremendously. How are, Kelvin Benjamin, he started out so hot. He's had some problems, 2 big drops in the New Orleans Saints game. They didn't really go back to him that much. How are these drops affecting his confidence level as a rookie?
It's a good question. I would say that his confidence has to be pretty fragile right now. No one around the team will admit it, because that doesn't help anyone's confidence if you admit it. We asked Mike Shula about it yesterday, and he flat out, when he was asked, do you have any confidence problems with Kelvin? And he just flat out said no. That I see it the same way as if Cam overthrows an open guy. You just come back the next play and do it again. And that's kind of been the company line over the last few weeks, comparing it to other positions, comparing it to a defensive back that gets burned. You just have to come back the next play, and you got to have a short memory. And that's what they're trying to do with Kelvin. I think they're trying to weather out the storm of this rookie year where he just has these lapses of concentration. And I think what they're hoping is that the more he matures as a player and as a person, he's not going to have those lapses of concentration in the game like he has, which leads to a lot of the drops.
Do you think that wears on Cam at all?
I don't. No. Cam needs Kelvin so badly that Cam will not let himself get mentally down on Kelvin. No. Kelvin was noticeably down on himself after the game on Sunday. You got a celebrating locker room, and you could just tell Kelvin knew, man. Kelvin knew that this problem isn't going away, and he had 2 very noticeable drops, and he was not like the rest of them Sunday night after that game. So I do think this is in his head, but it's up to the Panthers, and especially Cam and the coaches, to make sure that it gets out of his head as quickly as possible.
I've described Ron Rivera as parring hole 18 after you shoot 100 on the golf course. It's just enough to bring you back to the course the next day. If we applied that,
I got to interrupt you. I gotta interrupt you. That's a fantastic analogy. For fans on the fence about Rivera, that's a fantastic analogy. Sorry, go on.
Thank you. If we applied that to Mike Shula, is this push at the end enough for him to come back next year? Because clearly, just 5 years ago, he was going to be the guy that was going to his head was going to roll.
Well, fans are their say, no way. But I think making the playoffs again, it's going to be really hard for them to make a change. Ron Rivera wasn't going to make a change with Mike Shula. I really don't think, even if the season would have continued to go as poorly as it would, even though the Panthers would have lost 10 straight through the season, Rivera might not have had a choice. But Rivera really wasn't going anywhere unless they lost 10 straight games. And the offensive numbers were so bad after that Minnesota game, you did have to put that on the table that a change could happen, and a change would be, hey, Dave Gettleman going to Ron Rivera and said, hey, we got to do something about this offense. Now that the offense is doing what they wanted to do, it's hard to see a change happening now that they've gone to the playoffs again. I am one of the few defenders of Mike Shula out there. I never said he's a fantastic offensive coordinator. I think that he's been good for Cam, and his offense makes sense. The problem is they got to be so perfect in it. So when it goes well against the Saints, or when it goes well and you actually score a touchdown against the Falcons and not settle for a field goal, and you take up 7 to 10 minutes for the clock in a quarter, and you keep the other offense off the field, and your defense is off the field, which helped the defense last year, and which has helped the defense over the last month, offense staying on the field. That's what the Panthers want to do. That's what Rivera wants to do. That's what they believe their formula for success is. So then it's up to the players then to execute correctly. They weren't executing correctly for most of the season, so it wasn't going well. The problem is it all looks good when it goes well together, but guys aren't going to be perfect. Guys are going to make mistakes. So you really leave yourself with a thin margin of error, especially when you get into a playoff situation.
Speaking of another person that's been on the whipping boy of Panther Nation, Byron Bell, what's his future with the organization?
That's another good question. I think Byron, and this I'm again another one of the few Byron defenders that never said he's a fantastic left tackle, and he's not an ideal starting left tackle. I think he's been serviceable this year when healthy. There was a time in the middle of the year where he was dealing with not one but two injuries, and one of them was a leg injury where he just couldn't get planted into the ground, which is a really big problem for an offensive lineman, especially a tackle. So Byron is even worse in the middle of the season when he had his injuries. When he's been healthy, he's been serviceable. Is he a guy that you want to plug in there? Probably not. But now that they've played themselves out of a top 10 draft position, and Byron has been okay, I think they'll sniff around him when he becomes a free agent this offseason, and I think they'll have a price on the table, just like they did with Ted Ginn, just like they did with Mike Mitchell, with Brandon LaFell. I think they'll have a price where they're willing to bring Byron back, but if another team wants to pay Byron that amount of money, they'll allow him to go.
Excellent. Mike Rimmers, Norwell, Philly Brown, now Adarius Glanton. How many of these guys are going to play an important role in Carolina's future?
I think Glanton, he has a chance to be a role-ish player going forward, maybe. They didn't play a lot of the base defense today. He's been okay. The Falcons targeted him a lot. And then when the rest of the Falcons offense started falling apart midway through the second quarter, and the Panthers again, but mostly the nickel, he wasn't all that exposed. But he's been okay in his two spot starts for A.J. Klein. Philly Brown, I think he may have a higher career arc here, possibly than, say, a Drew Carter. Philly's been good. Philly's been solid, but he's also the sexiest woman in the room full of really unsexy women as far as speed guys go with the Panthers. He's really the only guy they've got, so he looks really good because he's the only guy that can actually try and stretch the field. Remmer's going to have a chance. He's going to have a chance to come in and win that starting spot next year. A lot of people want to already plug him into the right tackle spot. or you want to try him over at left tackle. No, there's still a reason why he bounced around a lot, and so while they like him a lot, they're not committing to him as a solid starter for next season. But he is going to get a chance to compete and win one of those roles next year. And oh my goodness, Norwell! Oh yeah, they like him a lot. Him, Trey Turner, and Ryan Khalil. That's a very good chance that's going to be the starting middle of the offensive line yet again next year.
Excellent. Last question for you, Bill, and we'll let you go. What do we need to worry most about this Cardinals matchup?
I usually don't do this, but it's another good question. I was looking into it last night, and usually I think the opposite. I think usually when I'm looking at other teams, I'm like, okay, this is how this team could beat them. This is how they could beat them. This is how they could beat them. I looked at the Cardinals last night, and this might be a bad sign for you Panthers fans, but it feels like I looked at the Cardinals last night, and I couldn't find too many ways the Cardinals could beat the Panthers. I think the Panthers have to beat themselves. The Cardinals are a mess right now. They can't run. They can't stop the run. They have, obviously, a third-string quarterback because Ryan Lindley, unless there's some sort of miracle in Arizona, Ryan Lindley's going to start. They haven't covered very well, even though they have defensive backs people know about. They haven't covered very well. They can't stop running quarterback. The list kind of goes on and on. They can't tackle. They've been a mess over their last 6 or 7 games. And so I think the only way, or the biggest way the Panthers could lose this game is if they lose it themselves. Turnovers, lack of touchdowns in the red zone, and/or special teams errors, which certainly could happen against old friend Ted Ginn.
Yeah, that's not out of the question by any means. Is our special teams have not been great.
So the formula for a Panthers loss is, have Cam turn it over a few times, don't score touchdowns when you're in the red zone, and give up some big special teams play. So it's something that the Panthers have done this season. They kept the Browns and they kept the Bucks in the game. So they could keep the Cardinals in the game, but just by looking at it right now, realistically the way things are going, it should be more like a game like against the Saints or the Falcons, or the Panthers should be able to put this team away pretty early. But that's up to the Panthers to do it and not shoot themselves in the foot.
Perfect. Bill, that's Bill Voth, folks, from blackandbluereview.com. Thanks a ton for joining us tonight for the C3 podcast.
Sure thing. Enjoy the game this weekend, guys.
All right, bye-bye. All right, guys, that was, I thought, a tremendous interview, and I want to thank Bill Voth personally and from all of us for giving us so much time today. What do you guys think about that?
Well, hey, if I could jump in there, something that just really jumped out to me is Bill Voth likes him some professor, man. That was quite.
You like them good questions, baby. Good questions.
And analogies, talking golf and everything else. Man, that was on point.
That was a great interview, Tony. Great interview.
I brought it this morning. And the funniest thing and the coolest thing about it is that me and my wife switch off who sleeps in with the kids. Like we're on vacation and stuff from work right now. And my wife came and woke me up, and I was like, "Why are you waking me up so early?" She was like, "I figure you might want to just wake up and get ready for your day." And I was like, "Thank you." I was like, "Shower." So I was excited. I thought it went great. I really thought that it was nice for him to spend so much time with us. Because originally, I asked him for 5 or 10 minutes. So we hope we can bring that back to you guys. Let's talk about though. What he said, though, and we start off talking about Ron Rivera and Mike Shula. Overall, guys, is Mike Shula going to come back as offensive coordinator next year? Absolutely. What do you think about? How do you think?
Go ahead, Joe.
I think if we make a deep playoff run, he will be back. I guess I can say odds are he'll be back regardless of what we do now, but I think he'll solidify his position with the coaching staff if we make a deep playoff run. And it's not, we discussed earlier, play calling hasn't changed so much. It's just been the execution that's been there and getting the right people in the right place because the addition, even Vogt mentioned the addition of Norwell and Remmers, what a tremendous difference that's made. So I have the feeling he'll be back.
Aaron, what did you think about what he said about the guys like Norwell, Philly Brown? He described Philly Brown as the prettiest girl in the room of ugly girls.
I wrote this down.
We got some action on Twitter as well who have said some, throwing out some names like maybe Torrey Smith or at Loud Boy 187 Cobb Cobb might be a good answer on this team. How do you think Mr. T Money thinks that Philly would make a good 3 or 4? How do you feel about all that?
Well, I think the quote of the night, I wrote it down. He says, Philly Brown is the sexiest woman in a room of unsexy women. And he was saying he's
That's
our
a good
speed
analogy.
guy. He was saying
That's a good analogy, Bill.
But he was saying he was our speed guy, and he's really not an elite speed guy. I really do like Philly. I think he's only going to get better in time. But I agree with T Money. I think he's our third player. Yes. Personally, as much as I love Randall Cobb, it's going to take $11, $12 million to bring somebody like that in. I think there's some guys in the draft. This is a wide receiver draft heavy, or a wide receiver heavy draft coming up. I'd look for a nice big speed guy there.
Strong.
And if you're looking for a speed guy or maybe somebody that you can find, you can check out on CarolinaCatChronicles.com Mel Mayock's top 64 prospects. 8 picks, 8 days. We are on tomorrow. Comes out 17 through 24, I believe. Right, Mel?
Absolutely. And number 17, I tell you, that guy would look good. He would be the sexiest woman in the room. The guy can fly. He runs an incredible route tree. I mean, he is OBJ-like.
And right now, if you go to CarolinaCatChronicles.com and check out Mel's top 64, I believe there is a sneak preview for who number 17 is. So you go check that out when you have a chance. If not, you can wait till tomorrow. It'll be up. Guys, I thought the comments about Kelvin Benjamin were interesting. Is that we have to remember we got a rookie, 1,000-yard season, tremendous start, went through a very tough kind of part in the season as a team. It's not necessarily he was doing bad, but maybe that overshadowed it some. He struggled against the Saints. What did you think about what Bill Voth, Mel, said about Benjamin's confidence at the moment?
Well, I think he was. I mean, I'm not surprised, right? I mean, the fact he painted a good picture. We just won the NFC South Championship twice, but that brings up a point, right? He was saying that Benjamin wasn't celebrating. He was the guy that wasn't happy because he knew he didn't play well. And he talked about how much Charles Johnson cared. I think that's something that's special about the Panthers franchise, man. We got high-character guys that care about winning, doing things the right way, right? So, I mean, that kind of all plays together. But I'm kind of glad to see he wasn't happy after the game, actually. He needs to be out there with the judge.
Yeah, he's not been just resting on his laurels. Joey, how'd you feel about that? Rookie wide receiver asked a lot of him, responded a ton early in the season, struggled, but fortunately it didn't really matter tremendously since we beat that ass.
We beat the feathers off of those Falcons.
That's right.
I know he came into the league with a reputation for dropping passes. Okay, we knew that when we drafted him. This is nothing that we didn't know coming into this. Okay, he hasn't dropped a ton. It's been some of the drops he's had that's really been the killer because they would go for scores or they would lead directly to scores. And Mel, I think you said it best. You don't want to see someone who had a bad game happy. They should not be satisfied. And I think that's what we see with this Panthers team is they're not satisfied with what they've accomplished to this point. They still have that hunger. In Rocky III, they would have called it the eye of the tiger. And that's what we want to see from our guys. I guess in this case, it's the eye of the panther. And that's what we want to see from our guys. We want them to be hungry. We want them to have an unsatisfactory feeling because we want them to have a goal still, something to play for, something to attain. They haven't done anything. They've won a division championship. Great, they did that last year. Let's win.
And it's game. By the way, it is. But to note, it is the first back-to-back division championship winner in the NFC South. But also, we didn't have a winning record.
Right, we didn't have a winning record, and
so it doesn't really mean so much. It would have been better if we were 10-6.
Or 12-4 again. And, we could have made a bigger deal out of it. But, we're 7-8-1.
We backed into it.
We did. And
we backed into it, and then we took it in the last game. We took it in the last moment. Oh. We could have taken it in week 8, though. That's the problem, is that, we could have ran away with it in week 10. It didn't matter. It should have been so easy. So... with Kelvin Benjamin, I'm excited. I think he turned out he's better than we needed him. Better than we thought he was going to be. So he dropped a couple of passes. But this is what I want to say about your comment: is that kind of hunger, that eye of the tiger. You know who I see that the most in, guys? Cam Newton. I really feel like Cam Newton, with all the criticism, all the But Bill Voth mentioned this about Charles Johnson, about getting the money and how he didn't let the money spoil that desire for him. Mm-hmm. I feel like Cam Newton, everybody said the fame was going to spoil him, the success was spoil him in the first and second years. I haven't seen any of that, and I see a guy out there that's hungry every day, that wants to go out on the fields and win every single moment. And to me, that desire I see in Cam Newton. Do you guys see that same? Is that the story of Cam Newton?
Something that impressed me about Cam Newton, and I think you're right on the money there, Professor, but something that really impressed me that goes along with that is this week he was turning down interview requests, right? Michael Strahan asked him for an interview, and he told him, he said, talk to me when it's done, all right?
He told me he was going to give me an interview too, but he said that Strahan was right ahead of me.
Well, if he calls Bill Voth for a reference check, you got it, buddy.
There you go. Conference call us, bitches.
But you know what? That whole icon, I want to be an entertainer and an icon thing, I think that's kind of fizzled into the long distance past. The guy is focused on football. And that's the only thing that matters to the guy right now. And I said it after his wreck. I think it put everything into another perspective for the guy. All you hear about today is seizing the moment, enjoying the day, fulfilling your potential. He's had an aha moment this year, and I'm loving it.
And it's that attitude, that approach to go out there and do your best every day.
Hey, check out! I got my new Cam Newton jersey on, man. It's stitched and everything. Got it for Christmas.
That's a Merry Christmas right there.
Right on.
Yeah, and there's a lot. I think that is nice to get on this roll at this point in the season. You know what? We were talking about adding some speed to complement Benjamin, maybe take some of the pressure off. We've got a lot of action on Twitter. Here's some other names: Jeremy Maclin, Torrey Smith. And then you throw in Randall Cobb, so maybe you got maybe that helps bring down some of the price a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that maybe that competition? If you think about this past year, there's not a lot of people, and it stinks when there's only one guy. But you got 3 guys that share a lot of similar kind of attributes of what you're looking for. Maybe that helps you in the free agency. But here's what. Let's go on and move to our next segment and then we're gonna finish out and start. We need to break down the game this week coming up. It's time to play Fact or Fiction. Fact or Fiction! That's right. Fact or Fiction time. Joey loves it. Let me start I'm gonna start you out. It's supposed to be like that, by the way. Is that was how it was made on purpose? Joey, fact or fiction? Carolina wins a playoff game.
Fact.
All right, easy enough. Mel, fact or fiction? Carolina wins a playoff game.
I'm telling you, I'm not as confident as Joe is, because the last time we were this confident about Arizona coming in here, we were 12-4. We were mile high. We were feeling great. Had a bye, man, feeling good, and it was Jake Delhomme's birthday. Threw 5 picks. It was awful. So I'm not brimming with bravado, but hey, this is a Panthers podcast. I'm going with fact.
I'm going fact because it is a fact, and the Panthers are going to win at home. It's a different story. We don't have a bye. Nobody thinks on this locker room that we're any good anyway. So nobody. I don't think we're going to take it for granted. You can't have a better matchup in the first round.
Okay.
No quarterback, no running game, no anything from this team other than a very solid defense. So like Bill said, like Vo said, is that, are we going to beat ourselves or are we going to win this game? Like I've said on this past week and what I wrote about, Carolina Panthers learning to win at the right time. Fact from the professor as well. All right, Joey, fact or fiction? Carolina Panthers win 2 playoff games this season.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a lot of variables in this scenario, but if things work out the right way, I say fact.
Okay, Mel, fact or fiction? Carolina Panthers win 2 playoff games.
I hope I'm wrong, but I'm going fiction. That's a little tall order to task right there.
Okay. Professor going fact. On the road, beating Seattle in our 4th matchup in 3 years. We've played them so tough.
We do match up well. We do match up well.
Yep. We can maybe hold Marshawn Lynch, understand that. I like it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you is that if this was actually, I'm going to save it for the next fact or fiction. Here it comes. Last fact or fiction. Joey, to start, playing the Seahawks at home rather than the Packers in the second game would be a blessing.
Straight fact.
And that goes out to our boy T Money, who you can check out his podcast on the C3 Network, Straight Facts.
Right on.
Mel, what do you think? Fact or fiction playing Seahawks?
That's a definite fact. That is a straight fact. There's no doubt about it. The only team that I really think we don't match up very well against is Green Bay. That's a straight fact. Saying that we're going to go into Seattle and beat the Super Bowl champs, man, I hope so. But that's a tall order. But we got a shot. We go into Green Bay, that'd be tough.
Can I just to ask a question here? 2 things. First and foremost, is it no matter who wins between Dallas and whoever they're playing, do we play Seattle? It's already written in stone. If Seattle wins, that's who we play. I mean, if we win, that's who we play.
I think so.
Okay.
I think they're
so
the
there's
number
no
1
chance
team.
we can play Green Bay.
Not in the first round, no.
No.
Oh,
right,
no,
in the second
I think
round.
if Seattle lost, maybe.
Well, if we beat Seattle, then, I mean, we need to put an article out on that. How about that?
Oh, that's a good question. Is that, can you even play Green Bay?
We can.
Right. Is there any scenario where we would have to play Green Bay?
Yeah, if we beat.
Well, I guess you got to beat Seattle.
Well, I mean, in the next round.
Yeah,
Right.
Green Bay would beat, say, Dallas, right? Then we go to Green Bay.
Right, for the championship.
For the NFC Championship game.
So that would be the only time we would play them.
That's right.
Okay, that's what I was curious about. All right.
All right.
And then my next point is, I'll be quick. The secondary we had when we played Green Bay the first time, or this season, is not the secondary we're playing with right now. Is that correct?
No, not at all. I mean, it's
Okay.
it's 100% retooled.
Right, I didn't think so. Just making sure. Okay, sorry.
It's just the other things is we struggle against the 3-4 defense.
Right.
And they run the 3-4, I believe.
They do.
And, Aaron Rodgers, after getting a bye, I believe, right? And
they have a bye.
getting a little healthier, maybe. The cold. We saw how cold it was, and our performance was in Minnesota when it was cold. I don't want to play. To me, it's kind of strange. Like last year playing the Seahawks at home would have been like an automatic loss for anybody, it feels like. But I would much rather play them than the Packers at home. This is what T-Money says. If we win and Dallas loses, we play Green Bay.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I thought.
Right, because Detroit being rated lower, they got to play the highest rated team.
Higher seed.
See? So I would rather go to Seattle.
Yeah.
So let's go, Cowboys.
Street facts, keeping us straight here. All right.
Yeah, so let's go, Cowboys. All right, let's move on and close out the show, and let's talk about the Cardinals for a moment. And this is my question to you guys, and I'll start with Joey first, is can the Cardinals defense keep them in this game?
Cardinals have a good secondary. I believe Mel said their linebackers leave something to be desired. But they're solid along the defensive front. I know they have sustained some injuries this season, and they're not at 100%. But I think their defense is good enough to where if we're not on our A game, we can struggle. I do believe that.
Mel, how do you feel about that? Is their defense good enough to keep them in the game?
Their defense is good, man. Calais Campbell, that dude is a stud. He really is. He's like 6'7", 6'8". Got to actually take a step back. Otherwise, he's going to be offside because he's so big. And Cromartie and Peterson, the Honey Badger, those dudes can play, right? Don't walk in there overconfident.
And it's kind of exotic, too, with Arians, right? It's kind of blitzy and confusing.
Yeah. Yeah, they're a very well-coached team.
Yes, they are.
What do you guys think about his dress?
Arians?
Yeah, it's kind of cool for an old white guy.
Yeah, I think so. I like it.
I think he had more personality than I would ever give him credit for him. Giving credit, but still, all right. So this defense, think about this, guys. Is that you're talking about like the Panthers? What the Panthers had to be at one point to win is that no quarterback, no running game. Does that mean no chance for the Arizona Cardinals?
Let me jump in there. I mean, if we think that's how we lose, right? I think if we play our best game, they play their best game, we win because we're a more healthy team right now. But you can't say Lindley is nothing, man. The guy had think about this. He was 20 out of 34. And he dropped back 34 times last week and only got pressure 7 of those 34 drops. That tells you that offensive line is protecting him. He threw the ball for 277 yards. So, it's not like he is Brian St. Pierre.
Yeah, but they dropped picks. He threw 2 picks, right?
Yeah, he did. So, the opportunities are going to be there, but he is not the 2010 Jimmy Clausen. So don't.
Joey, let me ask you this: T-Money points out there's no Darrell Washington and Dansby to spy on Cam. He says this makes the difference. How do you feel? Does this can our team do our strengths maybe kind of temper some of theirs defensively?
If you recall, last season we played the Cardinals early in the year. I think after a bye week, if memory serves.
At the game, by the way.
Okay. And Darrell Washington just came back from suspension, I think is what it was. He had just come back from suspension that week, and he shut Cam down as far as Cam in the run game. So him not being there and Dansby not being there will make a difference for us. Cam should have – it should be easier for him to use his legs without those two being there, yes, can make the difference.
Let me give you some inside information that might get you excited. One of the guys that works for me, I was riding around in the car with him this week, and he's a big Arizona Cardinal fan. I mean, the dude bleeds red, obviously, right?
Yes.
That analogy didn't work, right? But he said the one thing that he thinks the reason that the Panthers are going to win is because their defense, though good in spots, they're terrible this year against the mobile quarterback. Russell Wilson's been lighting them up, and he just thinks Cam Newton's going to have a huge day. So
Kaepernick did well against them too, I believe. Yeah.
So that's going to be our advantage. Cam has to have a big day.
All right, let me ask you this, Joey. Can you have a letdown game in the playoffs? We have come off of stomping the Saints, playing tough without a quarterback against Tampa Bay, beating Cleveland with a quarterback just coming back, and then kicking the Atlanta Falcons right in the face. Can you have a letdown? Yeah, in the beak. Can you have a letdown game in the opening round of the playoffs?
You can. I will say it is possible. I think with this team in particular, with some veteran leadership that we do have, I don't see it happening. Plus, every time they get big-headed, all they got to do is go look at that win-loss record from this regular season, 7-8-1. And that will bring them back to reality and humble them, because that's nothing to be big-headed about. So I think it doesn't happen for the Panthers. It's possible, but not for the Panthers this year.
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head, and that is maybe if we had a good season and we were like 10-6 and we kind of rolled into the playoffs and we have been doing well, but I think a lot of people on that team know what it feels like to stink and probably still feel a little stinky. Like they haven't washed the stank off of them entirely. So that might be reminding them a little bit like, hey, we got to play tough. I do think that this with the Lindley and the quarterback situation, gosh, if you're talking about a team, look, I have been saying this on the radio for weeks now, is I don't think the Arizona Cardinals are going to win another game. And they won one since I've been saying that. So it's kind of one of those things like you think it wouldn't, but man, if there's a team that you're going to have a letdown game, it's the Cardinals. Mel, how do you feel about that? Can you have a letdown game in the opening round of the playoffs as a team under 500?
No.
Nice.
if you do, I'll tell you right now, if you do, every one of them deserves to have their mama slapped. That's simple.
Dang, we're going to be Aaron, the Mel Mayock, coming to your house to slap your mama.
That's it. I'm telling you, if you have a letdown in the playoffs and you're a professional, you need to turn in a professional card and have your mama slapped.
Need to retire.
But it happens when you have a bye all the time.
The playoffs, though, man.
The playoffs.
Playoffs.
All right. Last question about this game is that we've talked about how we could beat ourselves. This is what Bill Voth commented on is the only way we lose this game is if we beat ourselves. But there is one place that we haven't played well all season long, which not necessarily, I don't see it changing all of a sudden. Even with all the wonderful changes we've had, this is on special teams.
Mm-hmm.
We have been a nightmare on special teams, a disaster. We've missed field goals. We have let huge returns. It's just been awful entirely. 2 block punts for touchdowns in one game. Like 4 minutes, like back-to-back possessions as well. Yeah, 1 half. I mean, it's been terrible. And then, on top of that, we got to play the one guy that was the only good thing for Carolina Panthers in special teams in the last decade, and that's Ted Ginn Jr.
Kick it out.
Yeah, my question to you guys, and I'll start with Mel on this one, is does Ted Ginn Jr. make the Carolina Panthers pay in something worse than even money?
Oh man, I hope not. That would just be sick. You know, that would. I hope not. I hope we're smart enough to kick the ball away from Ted Ginn. Kick it out of bounds. Kick it out of bounds, Brad Norton.
Just give it to him on the 40 every time?
Hey, that's better than
No.
Because you know who the Cardinals remind me of, guys? Right now, they remind me of Minnesota. Because Minnesota didn't have a quarterback. Now, Bridgewater, he's a rookie. He's learning, right?
He's way better than Lindley, though.
All right. Well, hey, you know, you got to stand your quarterback. They didn't have a running game. They lost their top player. We went in there. We should have rolled those bums, man. We really should have. But we went in there and we gave up the 2 punt blocks. We do that kind of stuff. We're, you know, if we give up a punt return for a touchdown, it's going to be ugly. It's going to be a long day.
It could be a momentum changer, yes.
That's how we lose. That's how we would lose.
The stupidest thing I ever heard.
If we give up a damn touchdown return to Ted Ginn Jr., you are so right. Good Lord. Joey, we got some action on Twitter. Says here, we owe the Cards a beatdown after what happened in the playoffs last time.
Yeah, we do.
I agree with that.
Ted, does Ted Ginn Jr., are you worried about him making us pay more than money?
You mean old stone hands on T-Rex arms?
That's right. That's right. Got alligator, them little arms. Never caught a pass over 20. But I will say this, Joey, what do you do if you want Ted Ginn to catch the ball and make you pay? You
kick it to him.
You kick it to him. And that is so this is what Mel Mayock has to say about kicking it to Ted Ginn.
That's the stupidest thing I ever heard.
You supported me earlier today.
In all honesty, we did a good job of keeping it away from Hester last week. And that's what we need to do again.
What about that Joe Webb tackle? What about Joe Webb? One play. Was that worth the $1.5 million you paid him? That one tackle.
Why?
Yes.
If Hester made that touchdown, it could have been a different ball game.
It would have been a different ball game.
That was worth his money, man.
Yes.
See, that's why it would almost, if Ted Ginn returns a touchdown to us, it would have been worth it for us to pay him and sit him. Yep. If he, returns a touchdown against us, that's what we're essentially saying. Is one tackle from Joe Webb worth $1 million? Hey, I mean, look at all that we've paid Greg Hardy, and he hasn't played. He hasn't done one thing. We should have gave Joe Webb $13 million.
Smoking over there, Professor.
All right, last segment of the show, guys. You know it's our favorite time of the C3 podcast. The Ice Up segment of the week, where we tell someone out there in the universe, and we have expanded it to the universe, to ice up and toughen up, son. Who wants to go first?
I'll do it because we had we had the perfect transition, man. I mean, it was almost like it was scripted. It was not, but I mean, it was perfect lead up because my Ice Up Son pick goes to somebody that needs to make sure they go and ice up after practice. They get out there early and they practice kicking away from Ted Ginn. That's how we would lose. So special teams coach and Brad Nortman, if we want to stay in this game, don't do the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Don't kick it to Ted Ginn. Ice up, son, and be proactive.
That's right. Ice up literally.
That's it.
Ice up. Joe, you got an Ice Up pick of the week?
I do. My Ice Up pick of the week goes to a Carolina Panther this week. He's a rookie who seems to be a bit down on himself, and ain't nobody got time for that. So my Ice Up pick goes to you, Kelvin Benjamin. You dropped a couple passes. You're a rookie. It's gonna happen. The great ones get over it and go on and make plays. So you're going to get another shot at it. You're going to get another chance. Go out there and make a play and stop pouting. So ice up and go score touchdowns.
Ice up, son.
That's coming from a former wide receiver. He knows what he's doing.
Right.
So listen up.
Right. We ain't got time for that. Don't let the ice melt. Son. All right, this is the professor, and he's bringing you the ISO pick of the week, and it goes to old Johnny Money Manziel. Getting my boy Josh Gordon in trouble, throwing a party after they busted your hamstring. And I don't know the details of this. I feel like Johnny Manziel is getting the Ndamukong Suh kind of treatment from the media, but his team suspended him. He was late to a meeting, or they could not be found, so they went and partied. They overslept, obviously. He was late to treatment. Johnny, everybody knows that right now you are getting beat down by the media. The Browns don't love you. Nobody loves you except for half of the girls in the world. And
They
pretty
just have
much
beer
me.
goggles on.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time right now, I got to tell you this, is that no matter how much you like to have fun, I can party, son, and I will party with you, but I will keep you out of more trouble than that. So, this goes from the professor to you. Learn your lesson and ice up, son.
Nice.
Ice
That-
up.
Hey, in his defense, it was not a Greg Hardy party type of night.
No? Oh, well, that's not bad. Did they really suspend
Put the
him?
build on there, Johnny.
I think they suspended both of them for a game.
I know they
Or
suspended
some. I mean, I don't know what
Gordon.
that means since they don't play anymore, but I don't know. Hey, what does that mean? I don't get it. I don't understand it, but still, like, the Browns, though, I think there's some meaning behind that. So if you want, maybe he'll go to Tampa Bay.
They're going to
And-
draft a quarterback.
Hopefully.
Browns are.
Send money to Tampa Bay, and that'll be a little bit closer than Cleveland. I'll party with you, son. This is the C3 Podcast, brought to you by Carolina Cat Chronicles. You can check us out every Tuesday night at 10 o'clock. Go to CarolinaCatChronicles.com for the hottest Panther fan takes. And, boys, good luck, and let's keep pounding this week. Joey, tell everybody how everybody can hit you up.
It is me, Joey Riolano, a.k.a. the freaking Puerto Rican. You can find me on Twitter at Joe Riolano. Let's go Panthers.
Big Sunday, right? I mean, Saturday. Where does everybody
Saturday.
find you?
Thanks for-
You
that's
got
right.
extra business hours this week.
That's right, we do. We've got some unusual hours this week. Saturday, 4:30, or 4:25, excuse me. Panthers playing. We will be at Southside 17 at Tanger Outlet here in Charleston, and the crew, the management at Southside 17 has come to me and said, anyone wearing any Panthers gear and mentioning that they saw something we put up on Facebook or Twitter or have heard on our podcast or
Mention
on our site.
Carolina Cat Chronicles.
Yes, mention Carolina Cat Chronicles and you will get a discount on your check at whenever you decide to leave.
Sweet.
So that is encouraging to any Panther fan. Come on out. See us at Southside 17. We have a good time. They give us a great spot. They reserve tables for us. We've got the biggest TV in the joint. Our games are played over the sound system, so you'll get to hear the game as well as watch it, no matter who's there watching what. Anyway, we're going to be the game. We're going to be on every TV at that time. So come on out, check it out. Let's see if we can turn the bar silver, black, and blue.
Nice.
That is a big deal, guys, because, Thomas Davis told everybody to turn up. And it's time for you guys to turn up and show up at Southside. If you're in Charleston, that's the place to be. Mel, big work, a lot of work coming out this week. How can everybody find you, and what are you excited about on CarolinaCatChronicles.com?
Well, I tell you what, you can. I am Mel Mayock. You can find me at Panthers Drafter, just like my bottom third says there. Follow me on Twitter for ongoing discussions. But a couple of big things I got going on this week. Tomorrow, in case anybody doesn't know, I'm also the Panthers analyst for DraftTech.com, which is an awesome resource for anything draft. Right? I'm the Panthers analyst, and we got a new mock draft coming out tomorrow. And I got to tell you, if the draft goes the way this mock draft comes out tomorrow, everybody will be partying in the streets. All right, so check it out tomorrow. I'll tweet it out, but go to
Partying like Johnny Manziel.
That's right.
No, actually, partying like the professor.
Watch out.
That's right. That's right. Teach you how to do it.
There you go. All right, just like you learned at ECU, right?
That's right. That's right.
All right, so I got
That was
draft.
his minor.
Check out that mock draft tomorrow. It's pretty hot. But something I'm very proud of, man, something you've been collaborating with me on, helping me get this up and out there, is I'm putting out my top 64 players, top 64 prospects for the 2015 NFL Draft, putting out 8 players per day and giving a sneak peek for the next day. We're going at tomorrow's day number 3. It's going to be pretty heavy in skill position players. So go check it out. You go to catchronicles.com. You go to the Mel Mayock Top 64 tab at the top. Check it out, man. I think it's pretty hot, and I'm pretty proud of it.
Yeah, there is a lot of great scouting info. So thanks, everybody, for joining the CarolinaCatChronicles.com C3 podcast. You can please sub up on YouTube. Check us out on iTunes or Stitcher. You can find all that information on the website or in the comments section below. This is Tony Dunn, a.k.a. The Professor. And you know what, folks? Let's go and get a damn playoff win. We'll see you next Tuesday. Moving on.
Do it.
Woo-woo.